Welcome, brothers and sisters. It's Jess and Jericho, and today we are talking about red light therapy, Yah's healing light. So just a disclaimer, my faith is very new. My best friend woke me up in December 2021. I do read scripture daily, but I'm still learning and growing in my walk. Additionally, I'm not a medical professional. The information in this study is for educational purposes only. There are references included throughout the study, so you can study on your own. And this PDF is also available in the description of this video. At the end of the day, you have to decide what is best for you. I want to say a special thank you to Covenant Calendar Classroom for your dedicated research and time. Thank you for helping us understand Yah's calendar and to walk in his way. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So I have some questions. What does scripture, more importantly Torah, say about light? What can we learn about the dawn and dusk sunlight? Does red have any connection to scripture? And how does red light heal? Will the enemy use red light against us? What can we do daily to harness Yah's power of red light? Part 1, we'll talk about light definitions, scripture references, different signs in scripture, the circadian rhythm, and sunlight. Part 2, we'll talk about red light, red and scripture references, of course, offerings and tabernacles, the light spectrum, light therapy, and enemy confusion. Part 3, we'll talk about daily practices, so morning do's and don'ts, how I get sunlight and use red light therapy, and frequently asked questions. So part 1, light. Light definitions, scripture references, different signs in scripture, circadian rhythm, and sunlight. So what does scripture say about light? In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Ruach Elohim moved upon the face of the waters, and Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. So the first 4 verses in Torah mention light 4 times, but what is this light's definition? Light definitions. So all 4 of these light uses are H216. From Strong's, this is or. From H215, illumination, luminary, light. And all of these in brackets and parentheses I think are added in. Oh, and then also sun. But I think it's interesting that happiness is included there, and I want you to keep happiness in mind. By the King James Version, usage of light or lights plural 114 times, day, bright, clear, flood, herbs, interesting, lightning, morning, and sun. And 215 is a primitive root, to be luminous, break of light, set on, shine. And the King James Version usage, light, shine, enlighten, break of day, fire, give, glorious, kindle. So illumination, luminary, light, sun, break of day, and remember happiness. What about lights? And Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for appointed feasts, and for days and years." So this is H3974, and this is ma'or or me'orah. The definition, also from H215, properly a luminous body, light, cheerfulness, chandelier, light. Keep cheerfulness in mind too, so happiness and cheerfulness, remember that. And King James has light and bright. So just to recap on the different definitions. So light is the root, H215 to be luminous, break of light, and shine. Then light, H216, illumination, luminary, light, sun. Lights or light, H3974, properly a luminous body, light, cheerfulness, chandelier, and light. So let's look at all three uses of light. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light up on the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And I put asterisks here. So the first reference of lights is the properly a luminous body, light, cheerfulness, or chandelier. So let them be for a luminous body, let them be for a light, let them be for cheerfulness, chandelier in the expanse of the heavens. To give light, this one has the two asterisks, so we look down at H215, to be luminous, break of light, shine. So these lights are in the expanse to give break of light or shine upon the earth. And then we have the third reference, the third one, H216, in the last verse, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light, so to divide the illumination, to divide the luminary, the light, or the sun from the darkness. What about lights and signs? And Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for appointed feasts and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth, and it was so. So this is the first mention of signs here as H226 oath, probably from H225, a signal, a beacon, omen, token, and in King James it's used as a sign or signs plural. The most 60 token or tokens plural 14 times, ensign or ensigns, miracles, and mark. How important are these signs? There are many mentions of signs with regard to Shabbat and feasts in Torah. So we use light as signs for his appointed feast days and years for his covenant calendar. So in Genesis, and Elohim said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. And in Exodus, speak also unto the children of Yasharel, saying, truly my Shabbat you shall guard, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am Yahuwah. Ye shall guard the Shabbat therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defiles it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Then in Leviticus, speak unto the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, concerning the feasts of Yahuwah, which ye shall proclaim to be my holy assemblies, even these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is Shabbat of rest, a holy assembly. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Shabbat of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. These are the feasts of Yahuwah, even holy assemblies, which ye shall proclaim in their appointed times. Clearly, these lights, or break of light, sun, and light, and signs, signal, token, mark, are important and connect us to Yahuwah. But remember, no sun worship. From Job or Job, if I rejoiced because my wealth was great and because my hand had gotten much, if I beheld the sun when it shined, or the moon walking in brightness, and my heart has been secretly enticed, or my mouth has kissed my hand, this also were an iniquity to be punished by the judge, for I should have denied the El that is above. The sun helps us, but yes, the sun provides light and signs, but is not to be worshipped. Admire the sun as one of Elohim's creations for us. So how do these lights work in our world? Clouds catch the last red-orange rays of the setting sun and the first light of the dawn like a theater screen and reflect this light to the ground. And this is our first reference. You'll see a little number 1 there. So that reference is clickable, so you can go to that article, and all of the references are also included at the end. So clouds catch the last red-orange rays of the sun and then reflected to the ground. Now you might wonder, isn't that just pollution? The truth is that tropospheric aerosols do not enhance sky colors, they subdue them. Clean air is, in fact, the main ingredient common to brightly colored sunrises and sunsets. Circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is essentially our internal biological clock. It works the best when we rise early in the morning and get early sunlight in our eyes. This early sunlight tunes our internal clock for our biological needs. Where's the manager? He doesn't like when I film. And in Genesis, remember I quoted this before, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. So very interesting that the clouds are the ones that catch the sunlight, and Yahweh set his bow in the cloud for a sign. So this is the biological clock, and this is if our circadian rhythm is at an ideal, clock. So we would have sharpest rise in blood pressure at 6:45 a.m. Melatonin secretion stops at 7:30 a.m. Then we have high alertness at 10 a.m. Best coordination at 14:30, which is 2:30. Fastest reaction time at 3:30. And melatonin secretion should start at 21 or 9 o'clock p.m. And then we have our deepest sleep at 2 a.m. And again, this is if our biological clock is in tune. So what does the circadian rhythm regulate? Melatonin, which helps us sleep. It does other things, which we'll talk about. Feeding and fasting rhythms, body temperature, hormones, adiponectin, adipose tissue and fat, metabolism regulation. So light hits the eye and goes to the retina. This goes to neurons, and then it goes to the brain. So this is how we see things. The brain registers that it is daytime. This shuts down the production of melatonin. In the previous biological clock, during a regulated circadian rhythm, as I mentioned, we stop melatonin production at 7:30 a.m. and start producing it again at 9 p.m. How important is sunlight? Disrupting the circadian rhythm can cause a lot of health issues because this affects everything in our bodies. Remember, this is a covenant between Yah and the earth. So for melatonin, it does more than just help us sleep. It is also an antioxidant. It can reduce the risk of cancer, and it helps cortisol production. Disrupting the circadian rhythm, their seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD, has been linked to a biochemical imbalance in the brain prompted by shorter daylight hours and less sunlight in the winter. Symptoms include depressed mood, changes in appetite, loss of energy, feeling worthless, and lack of focus. Now, do you remember our light definitions? We had happiness and cheerfulness. Told you to keep that in mind. So we have all of these different things that are affected by the lack of sunlight, which include having a depressed mood, which is the opposite of being happy, loss of energy, feeling worthless, the opposite of cheerfulness. Very interesting. By Jericho. So further importance of sunlight. Expose yourself to good sunlight in the beginning of the day to help regulate the circadian rhythm. We don't need melatonin supplements to sleep. Our Creator gave us the sun. Circadian misalignment. This is a quote from a study. Shift workers who are exposed to irregular sleep schedules resulting in sleep deprivation and misalignment of circadian rhythms have an increased risk of diabetes relative to day workers. And then another study with adjunctive bright light therapy, the study enrolled depressed adults with bipolar 1 or 2 disorder. Patients were randomly assigned to the treatment of either real light or placebo light. Compared with the placebo light group, the group treated with bright white light experienced a significantly higher remission rate at weeks 4 through 6 and significantly lower depression scores. A third study, effects of artificial dawn, dim light, and morning blue light. 17 participants took part of a 48-hour laboratory protocol during which 3 different light settings were administered each morning after 2 6-hour sleep restriction nights. This was over a few weeks period, it wasn't consecutive. Our data indicate that exposure to an artificial morning dawn simulation light improves subjective well-being, mood, and cognitive performance as compared with dim light and LED blue light. So again, we have mood and overall well-being, this cheerfulness and happiness repetition when we're exposed to light. So part one, light recap. There are many Torah references to light, luminary, shine, sun, break of day. This light is a sign between Yahuwah and us. Proper sunlight early in the morning regulates our internal biological clock. This helps our hormones, mood, sleep, and so much more function properly. But the sun is not to be worshipped. We admire and use the sun as God's beautiful, healing creation for us. Part two, red light. We're going to talk about red in scripture, scripture references, offerings and tabernacles, light spectrum, light therapy, and some enemy confusion. So what does scripture say about red? H120 is Adam from H119, human being, man, person. King James Version usage, man 408 times, men, Adam, person or persons, common sort, hypocrite. Interesting, one use of hypocrite. Creation of H120, man. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them. So in verse 126, we have a collective man or mankind. And then in 27, we have male and female, distinctly men and women. We have another creation of man in the next chapter, and Yahweh Elohim formed the man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. So the root word for Adam is to show blood, flush or turn rosy, red. And in Torah, in Exodus, that red reference is in a few different chapters and verses. And in King James, dyed red, red, or ruddy. So here we have the verses that mention red, and ram skins dyed red, part of an offering, and you shall make a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red. This is making the tabernacle. And ram skins dyed red, another offering, and red skins of rams, an offering. And he made a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, which is tabernacle continued, and the covering of ram skins dyed red. More on tabernacle. There are other colors associated with tabernacle, but I wanted to show all of the references of red, specifically in Torah. So offerings and tabernacle. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharel, that they may bring me an offering of every man that gives it willingly with his heart. Ye shall take my offering. And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. Does this offering and sanctuary of red connect us to Yahweh? This is from Sister Andrea. Red is the first in the color spectrum, the rainbow's order. Its role is to trigger melanin production to prepare us for the intensity of the light during noontime and afternoon so we don't burn. The spiritual parallel is that he's preparing us now while we are living in a low light place to one day be able to stand in his presence and light and not burn. And of course, red is the color of his blood, is covering for us. It has recently been suggested that infrared exposure might have protective effects against UV-induced skin damage, mainly by triggering protective or repair responses to UV irradiation. In the natural environment, visible and infrared solar wavelengths predominate in the morning, and UVB and UVA are maximal around noon, which suggests that mammalians already possess a natural mechanism which, in reaction to morning infrared radiation, prepares the skin for upcoming potentially damaging UV radiation at noon. So this is the light spectrum, and on the left where it says number 1 in red we have gamma, next we have X-rays, and then UV light, and number 4, this tiny little sliver of color, is what we see, visible light, and it's expanded on the bottom as well. And then we have infrared right after visible light, and then microwave, radio, and then long radio waves. So a wavelength is the horizontal distance between the two peaks of the wave. Light is measured by its wavelength in nanometers. It is usually characterized by the Greek symbol lambda. Visible light is usually defined as having wavelengths in the range of 400 to 700 nanometers, or 1/1000th of a meter. High frequency, so starting with gamma on the left, are the most damaging to us. And then as you go to the right, they become less and less damaging. So it's interesting that infrared is less damaging beyond the visible spectrum of light that we can see, whereas UV on the left of visible light closer to gamma is more damaging. You wanna come sit, Jericho? Come sit. Come sit. Come sit. And then on the right, I also expanded the visible spectrum. So you can see UV is just beyond the visible spectrum. Then within that middle section, number 4 is visible light, and then infrared is in the section where it says number 5. How does red light from the sun help us? So mitochondria is the engine for our bodies. It creates adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is an organic compound that provides energy to drive many processes in living cells. Mitochondria can overheat just like a car engine, and the byproduct of this is oxidative stress. Oxidative stress can lead to cancer, dementia, diabetes, inflammation, the VID-19 mortality, and learning disabilities. The pineal gland secretes melatonin at night and goes into the mitochondria. Mitochondria is also a powerful antioxidant, more powerful than vitamin E. Near-infrared light from the sun stimulates mitochondria to produce melatonin where oxidative stress happens. This may prevent cancer, neurodegenerative disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and even the VID-19. What is low-level light therapy, also referred to as LLLT? It utilizes a pencil-like beam of electromagnetic waves of a single frequency and defined wavelength to promote tissue healing and pain relief in a broad spectrum of soft tissue injuries and diseases. So which nanometers do we use? Wavelengths in the range of 390 nanometers to 600 nanometers are used to treat superficial tissue, and longer wavelengths in the range of 600 to 1100 nanometers, which penetrate further, are used to treat deeper-seated tissues, but 700 to 750 have limited biochemical activity. So what can low-light level therapy treat? Acne, photo damage, non-melanoma skin cancers, skin rejuvenation, vitiligo, wound healing post-elective surgery, wrinkles, superficial hyperpigmentation, anti-aging, hyperpigmentation, rosacea, skin tone, firmness of the skin, and age spots on the face, neck, and hands. Which nanometer is right for us? So I was using a light therapy device for myself and my cat. This device uses 660. And then I started this study and wondered, are there any Hebrew word number definitions for these nanometer numbers? Definition of H660, from H659, an asp or other venomous serpent, viper, and only 3 references, all of which are viper. So I thought, well, that's not good. Uses of H660, viper, 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 serpent. Guess I need to do some more research. So how I found a new light therapy device. I was using red light therapy for Jericho because he has a lot of gum inflammation. The previous device of 660 was actually made for pets. And interestingly, the company's founders are believers in God. Additionally, they talk about chakra healing and other New Age practices on their website. Now, I found this before I had my faith, and frankly, at the time, I was into the New Age stuff. I'm not anymore, thankfully, but that's what led me to this light therapy device. Stomatitis. So this means inflammation of the opening or mouth. It's severe inflammation in an oral cavity, and currently there aren't many treatment options. Most vets want to remove all of the teeth, but this often does not solve the root problem or the cause of the inflammation, and I believe that that's what Jericho has. So I found a study that uses near-infrared laser therapy on cats with stomatitis. These cats in the study did have their teeth removed before they did the red light therapy, but one group did see a great reduction in inflammation. And the difference in the study was the dosage time. What nanometer did they use? So of course I wanted to know what number they used so I can avoid the Viper. So this study uses 808 nanometers. And from previous slides, as I mentioned, this higher near-infrared nanometer can penetrate much deeper than the skin. So what's the definition of 808? From the same H784, foundation. Only used once, foundation. Not bad. Compare 803, feminine passive participle from an unused root meaning to found, foundation, or foundation. So we have the same. What about the root, 784? Fire, hot, fire, burning, fiery. Lots of references. What about Torah? There are lots. So the references are in the context of making a fire for food or a burnt offering, and Yahweh appearing as fire or raining down fire. So could be bad, could be good. So these are all the references, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. There's a lot of them. We're not going to look at them, but if you want to go back and look, there they are. So my new light therapy device. The new one that I found has both 808 and 650 nanometers, and it was extremely difficult to find one that did not use 660. So most of the ones that look like a flashlight, like a little flashlight, that's the one that I used to use, all of them use 660. And this was the only device that I found that actually had 808, which was used in that study with cats. And this was the only handheld one that I could find that wasn't sold as, for professional veterinary use, that come with a huge machine and they're thousands of dollars. So the definition of H650 from 622, a tube, also a bed of valley, a stream, also a strong thing or a hero. Interesting, but there's no uses in Torah. So part 2, red light recap. The color red is associated with mankind and blood. This red is also tied to offerings and the tabernacle we make to Yah. Near-infrared light from the sun helps protect us from UV and oxidative damage. This can prevent many serious health issues. But we need to pay attention to the specific nanometers that we use to avoid the Viper and any other tainted numbers. Part 3, daily practices, morning do's and don'ts, how I get sunlight and use red light therapy, and FAQ. So how can we get started? Don't feel like you have to buy the most expensive light therapy device straight out. We can get started with some very easy and free practices every day. Remember, Yahweh gave us everything that we need right here, the sun. So some morning do's and don'ts, and this is from a video. Again, the references are there. So morning do's, view bright sunlight as early as possible, close to waking up, ideally before 9 a.m. If you remember from previous slides, that's when near-infrared is at its highest. Then as you get closer to noon, there's more UVA and UVB. So do in the morning, view bright light before 9 a.m. Straight sunlight, nothing between you and the sun. Bright light might only need about 30 seconds. On a cloudy day, you might need 30 plus minutes. I like to go out, maybe spend like 5 minutes. I just stand there and count in my head. Morning don'ts. Do not stare directly at the sun. Do not do this inside in a car or wearing sunglasses. So the windows, the car windshield, sunglasses, all of that is going to block the good light that you need. Don't use blue light blockers during the day. So blue light is good during the day because that tells our pineal gland to stop producing melatonin. We don't want to produce melatonin during the day because we don't want to sleep during the day. Evening do's and don'ts. Do catch the sunlight sunset. Again, near-infrared is highest at sunrise and sunset when the sun is at a lower angle. Do limit light after sunset. If you have to use lights after sunset, use low-angle, dim, red-orange light. And also use blue blockers if you have to use screens after the sun has set. because remember, the sun tells our brain that it's day, don't produce melatonin, get the clock going, and at night you don't want to confuse your brain thinking that it's still day. So evening don'ts, don't use bright lights at high angles, and don't use screens for at least 2 hours before sleep, because the screens that we use produce UV light, blue light, and that's going to tell your brain to not produce melatonin. Then we'll have problems falling asleep. How I get sunlight. So I live in New York City, where there are lots of tall buildings and not much wide open space. And I started going out for morning sunlight back in November when there's less sunlight. So the first time I went out, I went on a very long walk. I think it was like 40 minutes. I was chasing the sun. And I could see the sun peeking through the trees and shining on the buildings, and basically just followed that. But morning sunlight is easier to find. So I used to walk about 20 minutes to this corner for sunlight because it's on an open highway expressway, so I could see the sun. But now I get the sunlight closer to me since the sun rises a bit earlier. So there's a parking lot near my apartment that faces the sunrise. The sun comes up through the buildings, and they're shorter and they're in the distance. And it's funny because people cut through that parking lot to get to the train, and they're probably wondering, like, what is she doing? Well, half of them are on their phone, but they're probably like, what is she just standing there? But I just stand there and get my sunlight. And it's cool because I used to be one of those people, one of those zombies and robots that were traveling for work, and now I own my own business and get to work from home, and I get to go to the parking lot for pleasure instead of, I'm going to work. So it's very beautiful how everything comes together. Praise Yah. How I use red light therapy. So I use red light therapy daily as a first aid or on acute injuries. So for example, on cuts, I got a scratch from Jericho. And so you can see on day 0, the day that it happened, all the way on the left. And then, so I put red light therapy right on it. And then the next day, it's pretty much already closing up. Day 2, it's pretty much closed. And then today, don't even have a scar. However, every other day or twice weekly is more appropriate for chronic issues. So short-term things, fresh wounds that just happened daily, and it's going to heal quicker because you got red light right on it. And for chronic things that have been happening for years, so like Jericho's inflammation, that's going to take longer to heal. So how I use light therapy on Jericho. Jericho also has otitis externa, which is outer ear infection, aka inflammation. So I use the red light therapy device on his ears and also around his mouth for the inflammation in his gums. These are chronic issues, so I do this 3 times a week, and I just started doing longer sessions, so I'm still waiting on results. The study only did 4 seconds, and then I found another reference guide from veterinarians that say to do 1 minute on each point. So I started doing 1 minute, and it kind of looks like it's getting redder, so I'm going to cut back on that. I really don't know what to do for the dosage time. For acute stuff, I have seen great results, like a fresh scratch, and even if Jericho scratches his face and cuts himself, or if he scratches his eye and it's really red, I'll use light therapy. I don't shine it into his eye. I close his eye and put it near it, and that clears it up right away, but that's because it's a fresh wound. Also note that, you do both sides also, even if the issue is only on one side. So with chronic issues like the ear inflammation, I do it on both sides. And also note that the light isn't directly on him, so he has black fur, and black fur absorbs the light, so even more. So we don't want to put the light directly on dark fur, and the same goes for us. And I learned that the hard way because I have a tattoo, a black tattoo, that I was like, why does it feel hot? And I pressed it on, and I was like, oh, that's really hot. Because the device does get warm as you use it because they're lights. But the black, the darker colors absorb light much more quickly. So FAQ, why dim, low angle, red, orange light? So think back before we had artificial light, we used fire. Fire is dim, red, orange, and typically low angle, like on the ground. So this type of light is more similar to the sun's near infrared than having like a fake light that's high above you and super bright. What about prescription glasses and contacts? So most are probably not enough to block the light from the sun. However, some marketing on newer products may say blocks UV from the sun, which isn't a good thing during the day. We need that so that we don't produce melatonin. And that prevents us from falling asleep during the day. So I have prescription glasses. These are pretty old. They probably don't block the sun, but I go for my walk, I get to the parking lot, take my glasses off, and then when I'm done, put them back on and walk home. Easy. What about reading at night? There is a study that proved reading at night with a dim artificial light and a physical paper book is better than reading from an electronic reader, aka one with a screen. So if you want to read late at night after the sun has gone down, dim artificial light and a paper book, a physical book, is better than using a tablet reader. What about light simulation boxes for the winter? Aim for 10K plus lux. This is a measurement of light used for 20 to 30 minutes and put the box 11 to 15 inches away from you. And this was in that same video. I don't have any experience with those, so I can't recommend any products. What red light therapy device do you use? So I use Novaa Labs Novaa Extra Strength Laser. This one is 650 and 808 nanometers. But note, all of their other products use 660. So again, I told you it's not very easy to find one that doesn't have 660. Also, this product is only available in the US at the time of filming. So part 3, daily practices recap. Start with what's easy and free. Sunlight. Get early morning sunlight before 9 a.m. and try to get evening sunlight before the sun sets. Avoid bright lights and screens at night, especially 2 hours before bed. Red light therapy can be used daily on superficial acute issues, and it can speed up healing if you get it on the wound right away. However, chronic issues will take longer to heal, and 2 to 3 sessions per week is typical. And again, these are the references, so there's 2 pages of them, and they're all linked to the studies and videos and articles that I talked about in this video, and this PDF link is available in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.